All right, guys. So today I'm going to have Alex Smith, the owner of Spartan Solar. Strong stud, a lot to learn. Dive into the podcast and get some nuggets. All right, dude. Well, thank you very much for joining me on this podcast. Been watching you a lot on Andy's One Percenter podcast, so excited to have you here. But yeah,
Okay.
so I have started the podcast recently. You're interviewing the guys who are kind of making a difference, making a dent in the industry, not just in solar, but in entrepreneurship in general.
Hmm.
So your story is obviously very unique, from ups and downs and to where you guys are now to where you're heading. So I want to pick your brain a little bit
Sure.
and get to know you more on a personal level as well. So,
Cool.
but yeah, dude, tell me a little bit about like what's your upbringing, where you from, how you got into the situation where you're at now.
Yeah, I was born in Long Island, New York, but I grew up in Jupiter, Florida. I went to FSU, so I was in Florida most of my life. All of my dad's side stayed in New York. All my mom's side was more or less in Florida. And so grew up here, went to FSU, graduated there with the triple major. Once I graduated from college, a little over 7 years ago, I went straight out to California to sell solar. So I was in California for 4 years doing solar before I got over here.
Wow. So you said triple major?
Yep.
Was that by accident or by design?
Definitely was not by design. I went in there thinking I was going to be an accountant because I was good at math. And then I realized very quickly after talking to some people that were accountants and what they were doing that I am not the guy that's meant to be behind a desk cranking away the numbers. And so because of that, I switched to finance major, not accounting. So I was finance and marketing. And so those were by design at that point. But then I ran into the sales institution. And once I got into the sales institution, I took a class because one of my buddies was there and really liked the professor because he actually made money in real life outside of being a professor. So for the first time, it's not a theorist; it's a practitioner, and that was attractive to me. And then when I got in the class and was with him and heard him, I was like, okay, I'm going to pick up this major. So I basically added an extra semester and got all three.
That's awesome. It's fun. The reason I'm asking because when I went to college, I did go through double major by accident. I was just taking classes like something that was interesting to me. So I was any entrepreneurship, business, accounting, finance, all those classes I were taking. So I ended
Yeah.
up doing two at the same time too for accounting, business management, and accounting finance.
Yes. Sometimes it works out that way. They kind of go. It's like a lot of them do pair up, so it's not like you're taking a ton of extra stuff for that
No,
extra
yeah,
one.
yeah. So it's kind of cross reference each other. So
Exactly.
you went through from Florida to California to sell solar.
Yes.
How did you get introduced into solar?
Somebody over the summer before I was leaving, so I had one more semester left. Over that summer, an acquaintance of mine reached out and said, "Hey, I have an opportunity I think you'd be perfect for." I actually had the number saved as the wrong person, so I thought it was a different person that was reaching out to me when he reached out to me. But then we jumped on the phone call and just told me he made $10,000 his first month selling solar out in California. Gave me a little bit of the rundown and made it an interview process. So I actually probably took it more seriously than I intended to, just because they made it like an interview. They made it more of a process. Sometimes now in sales and solar, like people just say, "Okay, you're onboarded." So because of that little bit of process, I felt like I was actually taking a job, and then I was convinced that I was taking a six-figure job since he made 10K his first month. That means I'm making 120K. So I went back to college that fall because I was a bar manager, and I was just telling all my friends that were bartending with me and everybody else that I took a six-figure job. So that felt pretty good to throw that on my resume because everyone else was taking their 60, 70K year jobs, and they're all locked in. I didn't lock anything in, so I didn't go to the career fairs. I didn't go to I didn't go to any interviews. So I was just kind of resistant to all of that. And so when this landed on my lap, literally landed on my lap, I ran with it.
Gotcha. So you didn't really look for it; it just kind of came to you.
Yeah, I just landed, which is a good testament to how important it is to like reach out to people and connect with them. And you never know who's going to be the person you bring over. I would never have thought to go into solar, to go into sales with solar. I want to do sales, but I never would have thought to do that on my own or reach out to anybody on my own. So you could just imagine how many people would be absolutely dominant in sales or dominant in solar, whatever industry, if they had the chance where someone actually reached out to them with the opportunity, explained it properly, and got them in the door. So it does make me realize, and I'm not that great at always reaching out to people to bring in. I always expect people to kind of reach out to me. But even talking about it makes me realize it's very valuable to reach out to people and tell them about the opportunity, because you never know who's gonna life it's gonna change.
No, 100%. I was introduced by a friend too. I did a church mission first, selling the gospel for 2 years, right off Ukraine. And so naturally, all my friends going back to school, they're like, "Oh man, we're going to do summer sales because to pay for school, student loans are so expensive." And I didn't know anything about it, and so I was like, "Wait, how much money can I make in a summer?" I was like, "I don't have any experience, but I'll work." So they gave me
Yeah.
$500 sign-on bonus to drive to from Utah to North Carolina to sell pest control. Dude, it was
That's,
like same thing. I just bought in the money. I was like, if these guys can make it, I can outwork them. So the difference I can make it, over time.
that was it. I was like, he can do it, I can do it. That's it.
That's all it took for me. I was like, I know these people personally, so I'm like, if I can put my work ethic, the skill can get there at some point.
Thousand
But
percent.
so you went through what company was it that you start with?
I started with this company called SunGrade Solar.
Okay, so you said
I
about
don't even.
7 years ago.
I don't think they're around today. The people that were a really big part of that ended up creating Better Earth later on.
Oh, okay, that group of people. Gotcha.
Yep, like Zane, Sean. Like I brought Sean and those guys into the industry.
Okay,
Um, yep.
got it. And so obviously now you're on the marathon, dude, with this Spartan thing. They're just blowing everybody out with the partnership with
Yep.
Andy Elliott, and you guys just obviously keep stacking too. So um, the story, the one thing is, I don't know if you watched any podcasts that we've been doing, but I've had a couple of guys that have been in the industry for a while. Um, it seems a very common trend with the guys where they were part of something before, they either got burned or expectations weren't met. It kind of almost kind of like a pissed off mode got changed, and all of a sudden they're like, dude, I can do a better job, and then I just started doing something. Um, Run me through what happened a little bit, not too much detail obviously, but like what happened from that introduction, working there for the $120,000 opportunity to where you at now.
It was good. I mean, I didn't get burned. They weren't paying us a lot. We're getting paid $72.50 a panel. My overrides were $2 a panel. Average system in California was 20 panels. So, but we were installing over 100 a month with what I built, my team there. So we're still putting out volume. Didn't lead to a ton of money, but still making six figures, right? So at that time, it was a decent amount of money. And when I ended up leaving that company, a few things happened. So from the first company, I lost a lot of people in my life. I lost my dad, I lost my cousin, I lost both my uncles, all within a year. So like a very short period of time, a lot of death and a lot of people that mattered a lot to me, and a lot of people that, more importantly, like got me motivated to work, because I would call them when I would succeed. When I'd win, I'd call them. It was like them I wanted to impress, them I wanted to make proud. So
Mm.
the people I really wanted to make proud, because my mom's in that category too, but unconditional, right? So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they're all unconditional, but it's like it's a different thing. So I'm not like trying to fight to make her proud. Right? I feel like I already got that, but with them, it's I don't know what it is with males and males. Maybe it's something to do with that, but nonetheless, all that happened, and so I started spiraling, and I was director of sales, and I just was not able to get myself to work. I was anxious, I was depressed, I was literally not getting out of bed. I wasn't showing up. I stopped doing what I needed to do, and this went on for a few months, and I wasn't able to dig myself out of it. I wasn't able to find the light at the end of the tunnel, and there's a lot of other things that happened within that period, but it was the darkest time in my life for sure. And after going through that, logically, and now reflecting back, I have a lot of awareness of what kind of happened. But thinking back on it, it was the right thing for them to do to fire me. So they demoted me from the director of sales back to a sales rep. So I went, this is the first company I was with, I bolted up, and then now I went from director of sales, top of the food chain, down to a sales rep. And they're like, hey, just make sure you keep selling 4 a month, and we'll let you stay as a sales rep. And I just wasn't, at this point, I wasn't even good for the culture, if there was any at the company, because I wasn't even showing up to meetings. I just was, out, right? I was there, but I was selling a little bit, but I was out
Mm.
of the mix. I wasn't good for culture, and I still stuck to selling those 4 in a month. But then they fired me, even though I hit the four. And again, they should have fired me, right? Because the culture, everything else was, not getting better because of me. I was being the rebellious person at that point.
Hmm.
I just wasn't into it. And after I got fired, that's what triggered the first big enemy. J. Cole has a song, and he's like, "Then I counting me out. I'm loading my clip," and he's going in. Like I
Yeah,
listen to
yeah,
that
yeah,
every
yeah.
single day in the shower. I listen to it every day in the shower, and I all of a sudden, like it felt like almost overnight, I was re-energized, rebirthed, and I had just a new like level of excitement, gratitude. I found a good opportunity at another company, and I knew this was a good opportunity for my people. It's all about your people. If you find a good opportunity that's going to put your people in a better place, you take your ego out of it, you take your title out of it, you take your thing, whatever that is that holds you where you're at or what you're doing today out of the equation, and you're like, is this going to be the best for my people, and can I attract a lot of other people from here?
Mm.
If you just do that and that's all you do, good Lord, things get explosive. And so, I've always followed that path. And so I did that, and all of a sudden, overnight, team grew, built fast, sold a ton of accounts, made a ton of money, got a lot of people paid a lot of money, and I had that enemy, I had that fuel source behind me. It's one thing to have goals, but it's a very different thing to have someone you want to take down and kill. Not like really kill, but you want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
kill them.
yeah. The
You know what I'm
business,
saying?
yeah.
When you have that going for you inside of your head, and it's ferocious, and you want to eat their kids, you want to eat their heart. Like when you have that inside of you, dude, there's nothing more valuable than that. I get so excited for people that just got screwed over. I get so excited for people that just had, massive problems hit them, and people do things that weren't the right thing for them and right thing to them. And I get so excited. They're all like worked up about it. I'm like, dude, this is like literally the best fuel source you'll ever
Yeah,
gain. I don't
yeah.
always have access to this fuel source. The fact that you have it right now is a blessing. And use it and leverage it and channel all of it into dominating and getting everything you've ever wanted.
Mm.
And so when you have that, it's the most valuable tool. And that same cycle repeated 2 years later. I was with that company for 2 years. Again, this time they were trying to cut me out of my overrides. So I was making, like $500,000 in overrides on my, teams in Cali I built. So doing pretty good, and I earned that, right? I deserved that. And I built all their teams. And they wanted to take it away from me because now I was in Florida. I came to Florida at a certain point in time in that company. I came to Florida, and I was building a team here. And so because I wasn't there, they're like, we can't have you getting overrides here. I'm like, what do you mean you're take away the stuff I built over there when I'm trying to build something here? They're like, that's not a good system,
Mhm.
not for growth or for leadership. And so that's when I decided I had to leave that company. We also didn't have a great opportunity for my people in Florida because now I was locked in Florida. Like it was not a good situation. We were just kind of pushing through it.
Yeah.
And so again, I made another move, and now this next move is when I started Spartan. And so my goal was to create the best company for everyone I work with and for everyone I bring in.
Dude, that's awesome.
I had another enemy. I had these enemies too. I was like, I gotta like
Yeah.
show everyone.
Y-
I'm the person you should bet on. If you don't bet on me, you're gonna regret it. Anytime someone doesn't bet on me, I will make sure, damn well sure, you regret not betting on me because I'm the person you bet on.
you just filled up the chamber with the high pressure. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
So obviously now things have changed for you a little bit. You obviously start to expand now. You start getting the partnership with Andy Elliott from what I saw as well. Um, the main thing is obviously with this whole industry, well, first of all, there's so many people in the industry now. It's like a freaking gold rush. Everybody's here it's like realtor. I know if somebody does solar, or my cousin does solar. It's like so populated, right? Um,
Yes.
what, from your perspective, like what makes or breaks a rep in the industry?
What makes or breaks a rep?
Yeah, like what makes someone successful or can break someone in the industry? Like what
It's
have you
the.
seen?
It's always going to be the leader. It's always going to be the person, their direct leader. Their direct leader will make or break just about any rep. Now, the stronger the company is, the better the leaders within it are, usually. So the probability of them succeeding goes up. That's why some of the, I consider us like a medium company, right? We do 5 to 800 accounts a month. So I think we're like medium to medium large. But even the larger companies too, it's the same thing. Like their leaders should be better because the leadership at the top that was able to get them to that place and that volume, they have some skills to get there. You don't just get there by luck. You don't get there by chance. And so the higher level of leadership available in that system, that'll trickle down to all the other leaders, assuming they listen and assuming they want to grow, but usually does. And so the likelihood of a rep succeeding in that environment goes up. You pair that with, I think it's always really valuable to start new people with other new people. I think when you pair good leadership at the top with competition at your level, I think you have a fuel for success and a recipe for success, because now you have the right leadership, the right training, someone's going to take you on the doors, you're going to get the information you want. And the people that are meant to do this job, the people that are meant to do sales, they're going to get on the doors with that leader and they're going to think, I can do this and I can do this better. That's what everyone that's good ends up being good at this job always thinks in the beginning. They always think this guy sucks. I could do better. Like, not as in like I don't like you. Thank you for like no,
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
in our heads we have that going on. If you don't have that going on, you're ready. You're gone.
Yeah.
But if you have that, and then on top of that, you have other guys in your, I call them like their pledge class, right? Other people starting at the same time as you, where, dude, like people want to compete, and you don't want to. It's harder to compete against the veterans. It's harder to compete against people that have been there for a few weeks or a few months, a few years. So, and you're going to end up competing against them. But having a few people at your level, you can really bounce things back and forth with, I think is really valuable. So, I think both pieces. It's not super complicated, right? But I think those both pieces, like that'll help any new rep find success.
Yeah, so the discipline of the leader and then the alignment of the new people. So everybody's in
Yeah.
alignment from the beginning. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's true too. The thing is too, like with I think the structure of the companies. A lot of times companies try to grow, right? That the ego part of it, like I want to be bad, I want to have a lot of reps, I want to fill up the room, without intention to support them or systems to provide for them to kind of success. So also kind of limits them on progressing and growth too.
And that's what I even like when I bring up like the leadership at the top, they got there for a reason. There's skills, there's things they've done. Like inherently, there's going to be systems. Inherently, there's going to be things to catch people before they fall too far. So there's naturally going to be some of those in that exchange. So it is valuable to be plugged into a system with a lot of good leadership and team that's gone decently far so far on their own.
Yeah. So a quick question for you: do you believe that people are natural born salesmen or created?
I think the nastiest in this industry are born this way.
Something
I think
is
the
something is
nastiest just get
switched,
out
huh?
there and they just got some EQ and they turn on and it just gets them going and they're more juiced up than anybody else when they're out there. So there's something that's natural in there. So I think the nastiest people out there in sales are naturally born.
Yeah.
But I think there's a huge chunk of sales killers that throw down a ton of volume that just took a lot of time to work on their craft, work on their skill, hone in, and then go execute and repeat. So I think there is a lot of people that do develop it to where they can still find a ton of success. But the nastiest people in this industry, the people that really throw down and kind of seem to just always be at the top of everything they're at, right? Whether they're in leadership or in the sales or in the set, doesn't matter. They can dominate it all. Those people, they came in with that. They came in with something inside of them. I don't think that's fully built. I think there's a piece of it, an element of the best that just comes with them. But a
Yeah.
lot of it then from there, when you really want to get to the next level, is built.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think there's I saw this interview with this girl was talking about hiring A players, and she talked about one of the questions they ask when they bring people over is, when was the last time you stayed up all night about something that you're obsessed about? And it's like I thought it was so interesting because the people who, well, first of all, if you're not successful in a job like this, you should be pissed. You should be figuring out how to get out of it. It's not necessarily
Yeah.
leaders can do a lot of like supplement of help and all that stuff, but the inner ego has to kind of wake up sometimes, right?
Dude, I don't care how good or bad or shitty or amazing your company is. I don't give a shit at what level that company is. Everybody inside of them can make it happen themselves. They
Yeah,
can all make it happen
yeah,
themselves. If like that doesn't fuel you, your failure or lack of success, dude, like there's we want the leaders, we want all these people around them, but like at the end of the day, when are you going to dig deep and do things for you? When are you
right.
going to be the person? And maybe you're the biggest fish in a small pond because that's just what it is, and you get there quickly, and then you want to go into a bigger pond, right? That happens. But when are you going to take full accountability, responsibility for either you executing, dominating, throwing down, or walking back with your tail between your legs? Like when do you decide that this is all me and stop playing the blame game? Because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how great the company is, it doesn't matter how bad the company is. The blame game is going to always be thrown out. It's just which individuals decide to go for the blame game when things don't work out, and which individuals decide that they have this inside them and they're pissed off. They're not seeing it realized yet. When do you get
Yeah.
pissed off? When do you stay up at night? Like, dude, this morning I was up at 4 in the morning and I couldn't shake this thing I've been dealing with in my head. There's this thing I've been dealing with. I needed to communicate with this person to make sure I understand and he understands me, and we can go solve this problem I'm dealing with in my head together. Like I woke before, like absolutely fucking just wide awake, paranoid, anxious, because I can't even go to bed with some of these thoughts inside of my head anymore because I get so obsessed with making sure that I clean up all the friction. And if I feel any friction, like I cannot just fall asleep. And if I fall asleep, I'll wake up really early because it just won't die until I go kill it. I
Yeah.
have to go kill it. I have to find the solution. I have to go get the result. And so I feel like everyone needs to understand that this is inside of them. Yes, you want the best leaders. Yes, you should find all those things. Yes, you want to start with other new people. Yes, you need to go train on your own. But at the end of the day, this is a grit thing. This is honing in your skill. This is you taking responsibility for all of you, every bit of it, and then you deciding you're going to be the person that ends up telling the story. I think there's a big hack in this world, and it's something I always lean into, which is no matter what is happening, especially when things are not going well, I always, and there's a lot of adversity, right? I always in this moment now look at this as a sick chapter in the story and I don't get to tell for 6 months to a year because I have to overcome it. I have to show up on top and I have to be now the success out of the adversity, out of the challenge, out of the friction. Same thing with, a brand new rep just getting on the doors, right? You got your teeth kicked in. I don't even like that word. I never used to say that. I never used to tell them when I
Yeah.
got my
Yeah.
teeth. Fuck that, dude. What do you mean you got your teeth kicked in? You knocked a few doors. You're getting dramatic. And
Yeah.
now you're creating this story in your head too. And the problem is people will oftentimes keep adding stories that they tell everybody else about they got their teeth kicked in. They tell them about the things that happened on the doors and the way people were. I'm like, dude, where's your failure amnesia? Forget about all your failures. Forget all those people. Forget all that stuff. The second you go talk about it to someone else, it has a new life and it lives on.
Yeah.
And it's going to tear you down. But you have to make the decision, and everyone has to make the decision that those moments are the beautiful pieces of the chapter in the book. Because once you get past it and overcome it, not during it, you cannot talk about it during it. Like a little over a year ago when I lost millions of dollars and lost 75% of the company, I'm not talking about this thing right then. I'm not talking to people about all this pain I'm going through. I'm not talking to people about the shitty situation I'm in, right? I'm not talking to people about this. It's just not happening because I have to get past it. I have to get way past it. And then I have a sick story to tell and deliver. And I already knew that when that was happening. And I knew that every time. So I think people need to look inside. And when these challenges arise, whatever level you're at, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. Know that that's a sick chapter in your book when you come out the other side because you decided to come out. And someone's going to listen to that story and feel inspired. Someone's going to listen to that story and go maybe change their own life.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the fun is.
Yeah. I think the one thing you've talked, I mean, that's a good point there for sure. Because the thing is, for people who don't go through hell on earth, the contrast isn't big enough a lot of times. And so, like we talked about this morning in the training, I'm like, the biggest thing that sells is a story, right? And if you don't have one, dude, borrow somebody else's until you gain yours. Like you have to have some sort of story of like why you're doing it for what you're doing and why you have to go through something that most people are not willing to go through. Um, and in sales in general, it's just, I think it's interesting because a lot of times people get bought in on money, but then realizing, oh my gosh, to get there, I have to go through so much suffering. I don't know if I can
Yeah.
make it alive, and then I might just not make it. And they won't take a chance on themselves, even though this job is all about individuals. Like we can plug in into any company, and with the same work ethic and commitment, I think you can make it happen. Like you said, right? The company has very little to do with it, but a lot to do with the long term, obviously, progression. But yeah, the structure of the whole mentality thing, I think it's interesting. But
Yeah. And when you even think about your story, right? Because I think you're right. Like everyone always says, stories sell, facts tell, right? But when you think about the story evolves. The story in the beginning for me, when I got out there in California, when I was getting when kicked in, when I was having, when I was talking on the doors, when I was
yeah,
having all those things arise when I'm in the home, my story was always the same thing. Like, look, I moved 1,800 miles to be at your doorstep today. Do you think I came out here all the way from Florida to be in California on your doorstep if I didn't have something that was completely a no-brainer for you? Do you think I'd be here for any other reason? No, no, I came here because when I was told, and mind you, this all happened. I was like, when I was told that I can talk, my job is to talk people into spending less money on a bill they're never going to cancel, become owners instead of renters, and then get paid $1,000 from Uncle Sam for doing the right thing for the planet. I thought that was an absolute and complete no-brainer, and take advantage of futuristic technology, right? Leveraging the sun and green.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, this is a no-brainer. I was like, so I told the guys, if this is the way this actually works, I'm going to go borrow $4,000 from my grandma. I'm going to move out to California and I'm going to start doing the solar thing. And so that story I just said right there, I used to tell like all the homeowners on the doors and in the home. I had my story. I had a story, and it's real. And then my story now that I tell people has changed. Right now, I'm just the guy that doesn't quit. I'm the guy that doesn't stop, and I'm the guy that always is going to come out on top. So the story is going to keep evolving. There's more to it, but in the beginning, that was my story, and that story worked really well because homeowners could resonate. Like, yeah, why would you be out here 1,800 miles away from your family, have no family in California, if you didn't have something great for me? Exactly. That's
Yeah,
why I'm here. Let's
yeah.
do it. And so that story got me a lot of deals.
Yeah, yeah, the one thing is that I remember like I, I I don't know how much you know the story. I grew up in an orphanage, right? So like since I was 7 or 8 years old, with two sisters and a brother, same situation. Like I've experienced death early on in my life. Like everybody, from sisters to brothers to uncles to dead. Um,
Yeah.
Moving to the United States, I was 18 years old. Kind of like my old man myself died. Now I had to become someone new. That story was so sensitive. Like anytime I was like, oh my gosh, you're from Ukraine, you grew up in an orphanage. What happened to your parents? I was like, dude, I was like so threatened by sharing the story about that. But then going through summer sales, I'm like, dude, that could be actually a really good connecting tool because like nothing I can do about what happened, right? I can grow a lot from it. Like you said, you evolve, kind of like a muscle. You break the tissue and become bigger and stronger. Um,
Hmm.
I'm like, dude, I have an advantage. Nobody can relate. Nobody can go talk about pain as much as I have. And so
Yep.
like I think a lot of times people like fear talking about and become vulnerable a little bit because I don't know if that's the ego of a sales guy, but I think as soon as people realize like their story can mean a lot to people, they personally force now to get to the new story to become better and stronger. But also that can
Yeah.
connect other people to them too.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
I think
that kind of that kind of story is going to get anybody.
yeah. Well, I
That
think
works
that
with
like
you.
what got me to with you is I listened to I don't know what you were talking but you talked about like man it sucked starting over again with my guys. It sucked to figuring out everything because I had something. It wasn't like because it was not working. Like a lot of companies, people jump around. My company sucked. They couldn't do what I was asking to do, and I tried to grow and whatever. But you actually had something really good going for you. And then all of a sudden that
Hmm.
was taken away, and you're like, shoot, man, I wanna make it bigger and better. I know I can. And that story of that fueling you to become where you're at now, I think it's so powerful too because like I feel inspired and I was like, yeah, I want to talk to this guy a little bit more and get closer too because like there's something with it that it's beyond the surface. I think you got to get closer to
Yeah.
see it closer. But
Yeah.
one thing I was gonna like with you guys now, obviously as a leader, like what's the one thing that overlook a lot of times because the thing is like we in this company in this industry in sales in general a lot of times people feel like oh man I don't need to work for anybody. I can just start doing my own thing, right? Like
Mhm.
the part of like, oh, I can do better. Um, why didn't you initially look for a company with the guys now where you could just plug and like, okay, I'm gonna use my guys. I know we can build with anybody. Why not start with one company versus starting Spartan?
So, as it pertains to my last, when I left my last company to start Spartan,
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't bring over anybody. I started from scratch. I had like one person that came over with me. So I didn't like take people from the
Oh
company.
wow.
I didn't like, a lot of my guys were in California. I just was like, this is a full rebuild and this is an opportunity to build the foundation strong and create it the exact way I wanted it. And I didn't actually just decide to do things on my own. I think that's where people might get messed up. I've been in the industry for 4 years at this point. and I, used my contacts and looked at all the different options, right? All the different installers I could pair with, all the different routes I could take, all the different red lines, yada, yada, yada. And I actually ended up choosing a higher red line, a pretty higher red line, in order to be a dealer of legacy at the time. Because I talked with Seth Grenny and I felt like I met an amazing leader. And dude, the whole time in all those other companies, I wouldn't have left those companies if those leaders kept evolving and kept growing and kept getting better. Like,
Yeah.
I was never the guy that wanted to go start his own solar company. That was never my thing. I never had that in my head. It just wasn't even a thought until push came to shove, and I basically had to start my own because of the position I was in Florida. I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
And so when I was deciding between all those options, I decided to take a higher red line because I was going to get to work with an established company. So I was a dealer of legacy, and I knew I was tapping into a great network of leaders and people that were much bigger and better than me. And I wasn't ready to do it all on my own. I wasn't ready to go do it all on my own. And I knew I was doing myself and my team a disservice if I went the route where we could make a couple more, 10 more pennies or 15 more pennies,
Yeah.
or 20 more pennies, right? I was going to give everyone a lesser experience, less competition, less leadership, less retreats, less of this, that, and the other. Like, all of that stuff was going to be significantly less if it was up to me, right? But I was able to tap into Seth. I was able to and shout out to him. He's a phenomenal leader. And he does things and he works at a level that inspired me. I like people with hard work ethic. I'm the guy that goes all day, all night. And when I find other people that go that way, they're the reasons I've gotten to be that person. I haven't always been that person, but being around enough people that operate at this high level, like being around Andy and stuff, it makes me realize how hard I can really go. And so I think your probably belief in it was probably partially right, but partially wrong, because most people don't know. Like, for the first year, I was a dealer of legacy, and I was within the Notorious division, right? And so I was part of this ecosystem. I was part of this leadership. I was part of all this stuff. So I didn't just go start my own company. I think I would be nowhere close to where I'm at if I didn't take that necessary step.
That's
And the only reason
interesting.
I parted ways after a year was the only reason I parted ways after a year was because expectations weren't met anymore. There's a big gap between, when they became their own installer, between, what they told me was going to happen and what we expected to happen and what actually was happening. And I felt it was like a ticking time bomb where I'm about to lose all my people. When they realized the installs aren't going up fast enough, site surveys are getting messed up, whatever was happening back then. It was early days for them being an installer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was the only reason I left, was because I literally I had to make a move because my people were going to feel the pain soon. And if it wasn't for that and that transition, I would not have, because they were great leaders and they're people I was learning from. They just weren't able to fulfill their end of the bargain when push came to shove. So, I haven't ever looked to go do things on my own. Even, when I started chatting with Andy, I've always looked to be in close proximity to high level leaders. I'm always willing to pay the price. Most people aren't willing to pay the price. They have so much ego involved. I have no ego. I have no ego in any of this. I know if I just pair myself up with the right people, my fucking people will get where they need to be, which will get me where I need to be.
Yeah.
You get that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you don't take that whole thing and put it together and understand what that is and the value in it and the cost of not doing it, the time you lose not doing when you don't do the thing that puts you around the right people for long enough, you lose so much time. You just you stay at this low level. You're around here, around here, around here. Maybe go up a little bit, then you're right back here. You're there. When I started doing all this stuff, I was boom, 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 boom. I was just stacking fast, and I knew that's what I was doing. I was leveraging and I was leaning into those people. And so I just think anyone trying to do their own thing needs to understand that wasn't ever my philosophy. That wasn't ever my aim, and I didn't go do my own thing. Sure, I started my own company, but I was working very closely with really great leaders and a really great company. I was part of in competitions, I was part of incentives, I was part of their whole structure, just my own little thing within it. So it was you got to understand that there's a lot more to it.
Yeah. No, thanks for clarifying, because I didn't know that actually. I thought it was okay, here, ships have burned, it sailed. Now I have to figure out how to come up. So it's interesting. So I had a lot of recent interactions with Legacy as well, actually. So we're initially with Switch, when I started, same situation. We went from starting with Sun Edison.
Yeah.
And Sun Edison hey, we're done. We're going to commercial. Then went to Solar City. Then Solar City is hey, we're done. And then I was dude, I love freaking solar. I didn't know the company that I could join anymore, because the only two that I knew at the time was Solar City and Sun Edison. And then so Switch kind of became by an accident with with a partner of mine that bought out the company I worked for in pest control. And so he was like, dude, you guys know everything about solar. He's like, just you and your wife, like, just start a company after a year we're separate. I was like, yeah, because I don't know how to do this. Sure, done. And after a year, like, maintain switch. But recently, like, the one thing that's I think there is a certain level of ego, and one, I do believe it's necessary. Um, for me, like, recently, it's been, and I've talked to you about this a little bit, about joining forces and merging, because, like, the hardest thing is initially I started because I had to, didn't have an option to join anybody at the time. But now you have companies like Legacy, you have companies like you guys, you have companies like Better Earth, and all. They have systems that um, you can just plug in and work with.
Yeah.
And dude, for me, like, ego part of it now, it is the hardest thing too, because I'm like, yeah, I've been babying this thing for 6 years or so, and now, like, turn the keys in and just, like, you know what I mean? Like, not necessarily like give in,
No. It's
but
not turning
no, no,
keys
no, no.
in.
But you know what I mean? Like, okay, so if, like, because dude, I've entertained you guys a lot too, because I'm like, for the service of the people, because you can only do as far as you've done, right? Unless you have other levels to get to with somebody else. And unfortunately, like, I've run into a lot of people surrounding my circle, and I've always had a handicap where, like, well, you're doing it because of this, or you've done it because you've been in this many years. You've done it, or you do this much better because of this. Always like some sort of handicapped. Never really validated for my work ethic. Never really validated for, like, dude, you stuck with it, and that's the results you're having now is because of 10 years you've been doing solar.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times people look at your, like, where you at now, and they'll find excuse of why they can't be there. So what I meant by that is, like, looking at, like, becoming with the company and adapting something new that I have not yet. That's the part, the ego part of it is just like, oh man, like, it's gonna be freaking hard, but might be worth it for the sake of people, not just the reps, but there's people that we serve in the area too. And
Yeah, and you
sometimes
would be
people don't do that move, and then they end up dying down. I mean, how many companies you can tell that that did not do that and they just died?
the amount of even solid companies that do solid volume that I've been in discussions with their key leaders about the main guy or the owner of the company about just come over, combine forces, like, let's build something bigger together. There's a lot of upside, and there's a lot of reasons you want to do that, and you're going to end up making way more money, and not to mention you're just going to learn a lot more. But I've had a lot of these conversations, and a lot of these guys, they don't make the move, right? Some of them won't make the move because ego gets in the way or whatever happens, and then their whole team ends up coming over, and then they have nothing. Like, I've had that happen so many times. I'm like, dude, it's such a shame, because it's not like I'm going out there poaching your guys and reaching out to your guys. Your guys eventually know they need to be part of something bigger and badder. They want to be part of something better. They want to be, like, part of something they can really grow in, and they want to feel that. And so eventually, just a matter of time, like a ticking time bomb, before, like, the people are going to just gravitate toward those entities. And then all of a sudden, these leaders that couldn't move out of ego are, like, stuck with nothing. And, like, it's a shame, because I would rather have that leader in the whole group. And I'm thinking about a group right now. I'm like, could have been building way faster and way better together. But now, either way, where the people are coming over, it's just not in the way that it should have been. So I think that happens a lot. It's going to happen more and more over time right now, because the industry is consolidating. And so I think the best leaders and the best team, like, need to combine forces to make things even better.
Yeah.
I love working with great leaders that help up my game, that give me perspective and give me ideas, because we have a best idea approach wins, best idea wins approach in Spartan.
Yeah.
And we continue to evolve our systems and software and tech and people at such a rapid rate, because all we do is listen to all the leaders, we get the feedback, and we go execute on it, because we have all the people on our operations side, on development, on design, on content, on operations and project management, like, you name it. Like, we have all the people in place to where, like, when there's good ideas, we can actually go bring it to life quickly, and all that you need for a bunch of good ideas is a bunch of good leaders.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder why some people, because the thing is, sometimes you do need to leave the leader to grow too, because some leaders are, I feel like they got themselves into leadership, and they'll have to kind of dumb everybody down to be in that position still, instead of, like, looking for
Well,
opportunities to progress the group. Have you
the
experienced
big
that
one,
yet or no?
the big one is that there's leaders that, like, don't have a big enough vision for all their people to fit in it. So like their goals and their ambition is just so small. They want to be like the best in this one little city, or they want to be the best in this one little thing, and they want the whatever it is. It's so small. Their goals for production, whatever. It's all so tiny that if anyone else starts to have any goals and vision for themselves, like all of a sudden yours is here and theirs is there. It's only a matter of time before they have to part ways, right? When the vision's not aligned, and your vision's not big enough to fit theirs in, your goal's not big enough to fit their goals in. So like as a leader, your responsibility is to make sure you have a big enough vision. And that, I'm thinking about this group right now, but like literally it was that. Like they didn't grow outward, they didn't get bigger, they didn't get badder, they didn't try to get to the next place. And so for that reason, like things get stale. Things get boring. It doesn't matter if you're making money or not. Like you're just not invigorated and excited when and every month things are around the same for the company. You have the same stuff, the same people, the same everything. Like there's things get stale. Even if you're making $1 million a year in that company, if you don't see things evolving and changing, getting better, like there's a saying I always repeat now, which is when you have hope in the future, you have power in the present. And power in the present means you're going to go take action, you're going to execute because you're excited, you're enthused, you're energized. And you need to be able to constantly give your people hope in the future. And a lot of that hope in the future comes from like, oh man, this thing's getting better. All those problems I experienced last month, they fixed them all. All those things that were happening there, man, they did this, they did that. And so when you continue to stack that up in your favor as a leader, right, like your people are going to be more and more and more bought into you. And they're also going to be able to feel like they can keep getting better and they're not caged in. So then you're going to be able to keep running and you don't run that risk of losing your people.
Yeah, no, amen to that. Quick question for you too. So physical, how much is your physical movement has to do with your efficiency and execution?
Dude, I mean, I don't know who I'd be if I wasn't, weighing 220 to 230 pounds, jacked and in shape
V
and taking
machine,
care of
yeah.
myself and strong as hell. Like, I don't know who I would be because this isn't my direct representation of my mind. Like, my body is my representation of my mind. The discipline you see in my body, like how strong I am, how fit I am, whatever you see in me, like, that's what's happening inside my head too. That's how I see myself. That's how my brain has evolved as well. You just can't see that piece. So I want something to be super visible to everybody at all times to show you my discipline, my integrity, my ethics, like the way I operate. I want you to see that and understand that that's here. It's also here, but this is the one you can see and the only one I could display before I have a chance to articulate my point, right? And so when I can walk around every day knowing that I had a lot of movement that morning, today was a leg day and I was like, barely could walk after today's leg day. And when I'm getting out of that, I'm like, I'm so freaking happy we just did that. It's scorching hot here in Miami right now. We're in Boxer in this gym with no air conditioning. It's a warehouse. I mean, sweating puddles and pounds. I mean, gallons. We're sweating gallons of water out on these workouts, and it's the best thing in the world because now I'm turbocharged all day long, like absolutely charged up because I executed. I got into movement. I got blood flow. I got a lot of deep breathing in. We're shallow breathers as humans, right? We're sitting in a desk. You're barely. If you think about your breaths, you're like, it's so small. It's like a very little amount of expansion in your chest. And so when you're on the treadmill, you're in the state where you're there. You're like, you're finally oxygenating. You're like your mind's coming to life. Your brain's awakening. You start to think more critically. You start to piece things together, and you start to go execute. So, I mean, I think the physical is one of the most important things, and there's so many reasons for it. But I mean, I preach that message, and I try not to just preach it. I just like to just show
To
it
live it,
on,
yeah. Well, that's the reason why I'm asking this because I've noticed a shift, and I don't know if you've always been in the fitness or not, or athlete wise. For me, like the gym, it's like a journal. Like I can go through and I can see the times of suffering and growth within the time I was being like how much time I've been spending in the gym, and I am one of those guys like if I don't go through the gym, I will go at night. Doesn't matter how late, I'll have to lock it in. Like it's just one of those things. It's always been like this for me. It's like that safe haven. Like I can go to the gym and I can solve any problem mentally, and then I can go next day and go attack and fix whatever I didn't get that day. And I think it's so important that the reason I'm asking because I've seen your progress and I've seen how much you evolve still. Um, and in the job that we have, which how much mental, dude, you gotta guard it somehow. And
yes.
gym is one of those simple things that anybody can go $10 a month to go get a membership and just start doing now a little bit, but get that guard built. where you can deploy all
You
this
need
negative
a
stuff out.
solid foundation. You just need a foundation. You need something you can turn to every single day when things get tough, when things are great. You need something that levels you out every day. Because even if things are great or they're tough, if you're still going to the gym, like you're brought back to a humble beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going there, you're going through hell, you're suffering, you're coming out, and you feel just elated, you feel light, you feel charged because of all the work you put in, you feel whatever you feel. But that experience you have there is a foundational exercise that in the toughest moments of my life I had to turn to. That was like the one thing, you know, I would go to do to dig myself out of a depression, right? The one thing I would have in my tool belt to dig myself out of this anxiousness or to like get over, you know, a personal problem or a breakup, whatever it was, has always been the gym. And I don't know what people turn, I mean, what vices people turn to when they don't have the gym as their outlet, but it's not good. A lot of them are
Yeah.
not good. And when you don't have the right vices to turn to and things get tough and you get older, I mean, it's just a recipe for disaster. Like you're
Yeah.
just looking for things to, like things might get really, really bad for you very quickly because your outlet, your way to push through the problem is not a healthy one.
Yeah.
It's not one that actually gets the result. It's not one that actually can change your chemistry, right? And so it is the biggest tool for me and has been, I mean, a lifesaver. Thank God I picked it up in high school. I don't know when people pick it up nowadays. Like I could imagine it's a lot harder to pick it up when you're older. I could see that for sure, especially you know how I was when I was in high school. I was a string bean. I was sticking bones. Like my family used to make fun of me for seeing all my ribs and all my bones. Like that's how it was.
Mm.
So I wasn't big. You know what I mean? I was the opposite of what you think probably, and what most people would imagine. I was not this way at all. This was all built, and I can show proof of that. But when I first started working out, I went to an old person's gym, and I mean old persons, like Loggerhead Fitness in Florida, Jupiter, Florida. Like 70 to 90 years old were the only people showing up there. And I went there every day with my buddy because it was right behind his place, and I just didn't feel comfortable going to the big person gym, right? I was like, those guys are too big, they're too strong. I just needed to like go into my little cave where I felt safe, right? I needed to feel safe, so I would show up every day,
Uh,
and I would just go work out in the old person gym. And so like my foundation was built like I didn't have the confidence to be there. I didn't have the confidence to be there. I had to go into this small little area with these old people. You know, those people I don't you know, I'm in great shape compared to the old people, right? They're even some of them are pushing it. But I had this little place where I could start to build my confidence, start to build, you know, my body, start to build my mind, and over time it's evolved into what it is. But sometimes you gotta start however you can, and you're not always gonna feel comfortable or confident in that start.
Dude, it's actually cool that they brought it up too, because some people like they feel like, oh man, I can't go to the gym because they give themselves all this, you know, negative thoughts of what is gonna happen. People are gonna judge me. I think that's why Planet Fitness does so well, because they're like, hey, come have some pizza, dude. Come hang out, get some candy on the way
Yeah,
out.
yeah, for sure.
And people don't show up, the membership's still getting charged because you gotta show up to back to the membership to cancel, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah, hey, man,
Perfect
they're
model too,
genius.
because you know they're not gonna come back, so they'll just pay $10 just to not show their face there again. Um,
For sure.
but yeah, dude, the one thing, when I moved from Ukraine, kind of like listening to you, I was reminding myself a little bit too, because I moved from Ukraine, 19 years old, honorably discharged from the army, not speaking English, not having a car, have a new mom and dad that I have to kind of like accept as mom and dad now because I didn't have mom and dad. Um, Dude, I would go on runs, and I used to do martial arts. So I'd go and like run as far as I can, and do shadow boxing, and then come back completely drenched, get in the freaking garbage bag to sweat everything out, just get my stress off. That's like the only way I knew to do that, to deal with that stuff. And then work got introduced when I got paid $10 an hour. I was like, you gotta be freaking kidding me! I can get $600 for doing this thing, just watch the machine do the job. So I got two jobs, and it's like, and then sales. And so it's kind of like, I think, um, what I mean by that is like a lot of times, like if people already know how to deal with stress, if that's gym or work, you'd one and the other always complement each other. And
Yes.
and it's funny how it works, like especially in our job where majority of it's mental. We get to keep our hands lotion, but you don't have to necessarily go in the trenches and work and put in all this crazy, you know, manual labor. But your mind is like dictator of everything that your body is doing.
Yeah.
You know, what is your routine? How do you guard your mind? Like, what do you typically feed your mind with during the day?
Yeah, my routine's it's pretty simple. I love being in bed by 8:30 to 9.
Really?
I'm fired. I'm fired up if I'm in bed by 8:30 or 9. Like I'm like, hell yeah, like life's good. Life is fucking good. And I get into bed and dude, this is just my honest routine. I get into bed now and I'm with my girl and we just throw in a movie. I'm fired up to throw in a movie. She's a partner in a life insurance company, so she kills it, right? She has a Lamborghini, she has a yacht, like she's a gangster. But we love the same thing at the end of the night. We love to just detach and we love to watch a movie or a documentary. And so every night, right when we get in bed, like that's what I'm doing. Like I've cleared my table, I've done my work, I put my phone on do not disturb, right? It's once it gets to 9:30, sometimes I'm on a little bit later, right? Respond to stuff if things are going on, but once it gets 9:30, like phone's usually on the side. It's on do not disturb. My alarm's set for 7. Usually I wake up, well before the alarm goes off. But I have my oh shit alarm set there no matter what. We go to bed at whatever time we fall. We fall. I usually fall asleep pretty fast, so I don't usually make it very far in any movie. Which is why when I'm getting movies on Amazon, I can't rent them anymore. I have to buy them because it takes me so many times to actually watch it.
That's fine.
So I spend extra money to buy it so I can like eventually finish it because of all the times I fall asleep. And then I get up, say I get up at the alarm at 7. Right now, the routine is pretty simple. I have my morning concoction I drink every morning, which is Element electrolytes, athletic greens, protein, creatine, and clomiphene. And I take all that and I get ready and go to the gym. I go to the gym with her and we work out, we get after it, and then shower, change. And usually I'm sitting right here, getting to work, getting on calls, responding to people, like starting the day right around 9:30. And then I'll typically go until about 8 p.m. like in this spot. Like maybe I'll get up and walk a little bit, but I really won't. I'll just crank from around 9 till about 8, sometimes 9 to 9, but usually 9 to 8 I'm cranking. There's just so much to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much to do, so many things that are good, so many things that are exciting, so many things I'm pushing for, so many things I want to build. And so it's just a constant grind, but it's not like I'm grinding down. I don't feel like it's wearing me out. Like it energizes me.
Yeah.
So that's my routine. It's pretty simple. I don't have hobbies. I just work out, I work, and then I watch movies. And that's fucking it. And I don't really care to do anything else. Like I don't need to be on trips. I don't need to be traveling. I'll do those things, but like I'd rather go work on those things. Like I don't get that much enjoyment. I care to do what fulfills me. And if I'm not doing what fulfills me, like the extra things, the stuff that people look for, the vacations, like those like I do my vacations very differently too. Like I'm working on my vacations. I'm operating differently on my vacations. Like I like to spend my time in fulfillment based activities. Things that make me feel like I'm moving the ball forward in my life and the lives of others. And if it's not that, I don't really want to do it. And there's no draw for me. I'm not even like I don't have FOMO. I don't drink. I don't go out. I don't do these things. So I don't have any fear of missing out. I'm doing absolutely everything I want to do. I'm living my dream life right now. People are like, "What's your dream day? What does that look like?" It's literally what I'm doing right now.
Just doing what you
And
love. Yeah.
people are like, "That's it." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, that's it." And that's why it works. Because if your dream life is all those other things, like it's not going to be the dream you think it is when you get there. I promise you that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I like it how simple it is too. First of all, I like it. I'm jealous they can go to bed that early. Well, for one, I have 3 little guys. It's like impossible to be in bed by myself without those guys to bed. But yeah, I don't know how do you shut off your mind? Like I mean, like with what you have going on, you must be like just freaking driving yourself
Yeah.
crazy too. Like
Well, yeah. Now oh yeah, there's another piece to that. So, and this is like newer for me, like definitely newer. But now every single night, like it's like my clock out moment, and it's not like the full clock out, but now right around, around that 8:39, right when I'm like getting done, I'll take an edible. I'll give one to my girl. We both take our edibles. She has the same thing. She has so much going on in her world too. Like we live the same lives. She's just in a different industry. Um, and so we both do that, and that's how we eventually, when that edible kicks in, we start to like be able to get outside my own
tune
head
out.
for a little bit and just tune into the movie, tune into whatever's going on the TV, tune into her, and I'm good. I do need that little bit of detachment. I like edibles. I like weed edibles. I like mushrooms, and that's about it. Those are some things I literally use to just get out of my own head for a little bit and just be present, be in the moment, and just like be outside of this thing that keeps spinning around all day. So there are little things I do. I do take those. I do take that. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, no,
That's newer though. That's like the last couple months. That's like newer.
yeah, I got into the cold plunging about a year ago, and so for me, that's been like a zap my brain good. So I go in a sauna for like 20 minutes, get super hot, and then jump right in the ice right after. Dude, it freaking rock
Yeah,
me.
it's the best.
Yeah.
That's the best, man. Like that'll charge you up and wake you up like nothing else. Like
Yeah, yeah. It's just like your body is just
better
like,
than any
what the hell?
better than any caffeine or anything else.
No, and then you're ready to run through the wall. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is more for my nighttime stuff, you know? That's like morning time thing for me if I'm doing one of those.
Yeah. No, sometimes I've done a double session where I go in the pool in California. It gets pretty cold at night sometimes, and like I can just go chill my head out in the cold pool too. Um,
Yeah.
one. So from your perspective, like if you could, the one of the most overlooked things when it comes to development in general, like what do you think? One of the most important things that somebody can implement today to start making some changes.
Dude, number one. This is like my number one, and it'll remain my number one until something changes. But the first thing you could do is grab a piece of paper, put this right here, put it down. You can write out clearly what you want and who you want to become. Like you can clearly write out you want to become. You want to be a badass. You want to be a leader. You want to be on a magazine. You want to be speaking on stage. Get a little bit of that going just for a second, and that's not the whole exercise. That's just to make sure you understand what you actually care about. Okay. Now we're gonna do the thing that's gonna create the change. Then you're gonna write a list of all your vices, all of your negative vices. When you do this, it's a cause and effect situation, right? When you do X, Y happens. If you do X, is Y a negative thing, right? So like if you drink, does it lead to being hungover? If you're hungover, does that lead to eating unhealthy and eating pizza, which leads you to being lethargic, right? So write out all the negative bad vices you have that have a negative cause and effect, right? And this is where I think people get twisted. It's not, you don't need to. Oftentimes, people think they need to keep adding into their lives to get better, and and adding more information in books and all these things. And sure, oftentimes you can just read one book over and over again for a year and get a lot more than reading a ton of books. First of
Yeah,
all,
yeah,
so once you do that, then you look at that list, and if you're ready, if that person you said you want to become, right, you're going to quickly realize that person you want to become doesn't do those things. That person never got there by doing those things. You know what I mean? And so now you have a reality check, and then you look at the list and you go, if I stopped one of these, which one would lead to the most positive change? Which one of these would lead to the greatest positive effect? Which one of these, if I keep doing, leads to the most other negative vices? Because oftentimes, like birds of a feather flock together. So one negative vice is like paired and
yeah,
goes into
yeah,
another
yeah.
one. It's just like a cascade effect. And so once you do that, if you decide to go eliminate that now, because you actually can look at that and see enough pain in it, because you see the future you won't have. You see the people, and I look at like when you want to kill something. Like I wanted to kill drinking. I stopped drinking like 3 years ago, right? And when I wanted to stop drinking, I had to like reestablish my mind and how it looks at and perceives alcohol, and it had to go from pleasure to pain. And I did it in twofold steps. So you find that vice, and then for me, this will work for me. Maybe it'll work for other people. I would look at other people. I would still go out and be in the scene a little bit because I didn't want to stop drinking just because it wasn't around me, because that's not a test, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
still needed to be able to not drink when I'm surrounded by it. That's when you see if you're actually
You
building
master
the
it. Yeah.
resolve, the will. And so I'd see people drinking. I looked at all the pain. I'd be like, man, dude, they're gonna be so hungover tomorrow. Like I'm not like the guy that's telling people to stop drinking at all. But I'll just like look at people in my head. I'm like, oh, I feel so bad for that person. The guy's like stumbling around looking like a mess. Dude, he doesn't even fucking know how dumb he looks right now in front of all these girls. That guy's being creepy, and that's because he drank too much. What a loser. Like, that guy's going to be hungover. Like, I would see so much pain in the drinking that, like, it would make you not want to touch it. But then I would add in another element, which became important for me, which is I'm going to smoke that guy. That guy, he's a leader in another company. Like, dude, he's gonna be hungover tomorrow. I'm gonna be running a Murph tomorrow. I just like, there's things going on in my head where I'm just like gaining an edge on every other human. Plus, I see the pain. When I combine those two against that habit, dude, I don't want to touch that stuff, right? And so that was my trick to getting my mind to allow me to cut that out, cut vaping out, cut a bunch of stuff out. And so I would say like the greatest tool in your tool belt right now, if you really want to grow and evolve, is kill some of the bad vices, and you're just gonna be shocked by how much energy, how much clarity, how much focus, how much drive you start to gain over time. And when big problems arise and you don't have these negative vices, you're going to be the man ready for the challenge, as opposed to the man that's going to fall down when the attack comes in.
Yeah, I think it's cool too because you mentioned this, and I don't know if it was intentional, but that you kill the vice, but now you pull it to the chamber again. Use more pressure now to freaking plow through things that you weren't able to do before. But
Exactly.
by simply understanding the contrast of what the reason why you weren't, I don't know, as attentive because you were freaking loosey and doozy, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
because of that thing, now it's gone. You can get more attention. Now you can become more disciplined and get further ahead.
Because you can become fucking dangerous, bro. Like at any moment I could deal with a shit sandwich because I don't have the problems. I don't have the vices I turn to when things go wrong. Like I only have good outlets. So like I can handle so much more than most people. And I know that because I've seen other people try to handle a fraction of what I handle and they break and crash. And I'm like, dude, that's it's literally nothing.
Yeah.
And it's because like they haven't honed in this stuff. And the thing with killing these habits, the thing that most people don't get, which I think is really important to understand in advance, is that it's not like all of a sudden overnight you're this new brand new person that just dominates the world, right?
Right.
It just doesn't happen like that. There's going to be upticks. You're going to see like forward progress. Like you're going to have more wins than losses now. You're going to stack those more frequently. But it wasn't until like for me, I've talked about this before, but it wasn't until a company went out of business, lost millions of dollars, lost 75% of the company, when all those vices I killed came into effect, right? Because now that those were all killed and I had this hardest moment in my life arose, right? Like in my professional career, like the hardest time in my professional career showed up. And if I had any of those still, I would have turned to those instead of turned to like, I'm going to fight through this. I'm going to come out stronger and better. And this is going to be a sick chapter in the book. But because at that moment, and that was, like 2 years after, right? Like a year and a half after I stopped drinking and vaping, because of that, like I was able to come out on top. But if I still had those vices in that moment and in those moments of challenge, I don't know what would happen. I don't think I would be here talking to you today. I don't think I'd have the company that is here today. I don't think any of this would have happened. So you just don't know when that's going to be your superpower.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times people also fear, like they have that natural fear of, like, I just don't want to, like, if I did this change or if I got into sales, an example, and I not failed, that would be such a like horrible experience for me. I don't know if I can do this again. I don't know if like people, an example, a lot of times they don't do certain things because of fear stopping them from like failure, right?
Mm-hmm.
But some people, like from your example, I think, where like the sooner I fail, the faster I learn, and then all of a sudden now I have a finer ways to progress and get better, and just repeat, right?
Yep.
Where did that come from for you? Like, how did you got to the point where like realizing like, okay, maybe it is less, maybe the lessons are in a failure, and I just need to learn how to fail with style, grow from it, and get better, and then do it again. Like, where did that come from for you?
From being the person that doesn't quit.
Yeah.
Like you experience problems at different levels as you grow up. And I like to use this example, which is a 5-year-old that just had his toy stolen from him is going to be extremely distraught, upset, crying, mad, all the emotions. Those emotions and reaction that guy had is probably pretty damn similar to the one I had at 27 or 28 when I lost millions of dollars and lost 75% of the company. Right? So me and this 5-year-old are probably having a very similar reaction to very different things, right? But this is the biggest problem he's ever experienced. This is the biggest problem I've ever experienced. So we're on an even playing field. And so the biggest thing you've ever gone through is the biggest thing you've ever gone through. The most challenging moment of your life is the most challenging moment of your life, whatever scale it is in perception to other people. So I just wanted to become the person that didn't quit, and I kept pushing through. So those challenges were at different scales when I was, just a sales rep, when I was running an office. Like the challenges would be at different scales. An EPC shitting the bed, and I had to put out a bunch of fires. So me and my people are taken care of. Like before that, your sales rep on the doors, and you think you're always going to have at least 10 or 15 accounts a month, and then you have a month where you only have a couple, and you're just not able to get yourself out there, and you don't know what's going on. You're downward. There's all these different levels of problems you have to push through and overcome. And once you just like see yourself as the person that keeps pushing through it and overcoming it, and then you get to the next problem, you get to the next challenge, and yes, it's harder, but you're ready for it because you're like, oh, I already did all that. I already went through these things before in a different way, and so I'm just the guy that doesn't quit. I'm the guy that keeps on going. I'm the guy that comes out on top. I created an identity for myself as the guy that you can't stop me. You can't kill me. I feel like indestructible, right? I don't mean that in a way like I'm not attentive or making things better or not aware of my weaknesses or what I need to improve on. I'm just saying that like that's a belief. I'm indestructible,
Mm-hmm.
right? You cannot kill me. I will always come out on top. So you can stack. Only way I know to stack that. David Goggins says, putting cookies in the cookie jar, right? It's the same premise, right? You're just stacking up these. You've made it through these moments, that moment, this moment, that moment. And then when you have the hardest moment of your life, hopefully you can lean back in and look back to all the things you've overcome and then overcome this one. Because the alternative is to become a serial quitter. The alternative is to quit this, then quit that,
Yeah.
then quit that. I know so many serial quitters. And the people that keep quitting, dude, like you literally, my identity of being indestructible, their identity, whether they want to say it or not, is I quit everything when it gets hard.
Yeah.
And so that's in their head, that's ingrained in their mind. And so time there's a problem, like that's just what they do. And you can never have forward progress because there's a saying that really needs to be understood, which is it's blood, sweat, and tears and years. People always say blood, sweat. I put my blood, sweat, and tears in this thing. Like, dude, did you put years in?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can put blood, sweat, and tears for a couple months, but dude, I'm 7 years into this game,
Yeah.
right? I'm 8 years into this game. Like, where are the years? Because if there's no years, it doesn't matter how many tears you shed in that 3 more months. It doesn't matter. It's worth little to nothing. You have to add the years component into any build, into any growth. There's no way around it. And I even now at this point, because I realize like, like I've been through a lot of shit, and like there's like nothing that will get me off my game. But I wanted to lean into other people's problems. So now like I watch documentaries like Super Pumped, the story of Uber, Spotify, the story of the Spotify story, right? Their build. We Crashed, the story of WeWorks, Elon Musk's book, right? Absolutely incredible. Like best read I've ever had. I would say arguably best read I've ever ever taken the time. A big book, finished in just a couple of days because it was so compelling. But I lean into all these other giants, all these other massive players in the world that have gone through more than I could ever even fathom and have came out on top. And when I can watch those documentaries, when I can read that book, dude, now anything I go through is like, it's literally such a tiny drop in the bucket. It's like, dude, they went through this. This is nothing. Let me
Yeah.
tell you, this guy did all this. You guys are telling me right now, this is the thing that's gonna, fuck no, this is not the thing that's gonna break us. So my perspective now, I leaned into my own for a while. Now I lean into other people's. So it's relativity. There's like relativity to it, and so I think that's a cheat code.
Yeah, no, I love that because, well, there's a saying, right? Fake it to make it. A lot of times, you gotta fake it a little bit too. As I think, like if you want to become something that you're not, you gotta act like that person already to get there, and then as a refinement along the way will kind of shape you into that person over time or years. But
And I said this. I just spoke at Solar CEOs event.
yeah,
I was just there to try to rip everyone's head off, and I told everyone I was like, "Look, paranoid leaders stay alive. If you're not paranoid, when I was not paranoid, things went really bad and they were really hard. But when I got paranoid, which I'm hyper paranoid all the time right now, like I'm always like ready for like the worst news. I'm always expecting things to go bad. I'm always there. I'm always thinking things aren't good enough. Like I'm just paranoid,
yeah,
right? Which gives me a lot of anxious energy, which I channel right into my business. I channel right into phone calls. I channel into getting clarity. I channel all of that into all of this. And if you're a paranoid leader, you will stay alive. And so if you can find a way, because then you're ready for those challenges, you're ready for the friction, you're ready for the customer that calls you and says this, you're ready for all that stuff.
yeah,
But you got to be paranoid, which means paranoid in my mind just means like you know that there's a lot of things that can happen, that might happen, that are on the brink of happening. And so when it does happen, there's no surprise, and you have plans in place for it. You are ready for it. You are calculated. You've expected it, and maybe you got ahead of it. And so I now really do preach the message of, dude, you want to survive this game? You better be paranoid. Second, I got complacent and thought I was good. I got smacked across the face harder than most people could imagine stomaching.
yeah, yeah. No, dude. Honestly, that's what happens because there in this job, especially too, when you get paid so well, it's really easy to lose a paranoia because you're like, okay, majority of the things that I worry about are taken care of now. Now I can just like say vacation and freaking flashy things that everybody buys into, all these reps online that buy stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
the the one thing I was two things I was gonna ask you. So one, like, how do you fill out the grasshoppers? So people come in, never intend to put anything in, but only to draw. As soon as they don't draw anything from you, they move to somebody else. How do you spot those guys out? And two, the importance of structure and timeline. Because I know that we work for ourselves with 1099. You can wake up at whatever time, go to bed whatever time, with whatever task you want. But how important is structure and timeline um, in general for you?
Okay, number one, dealing with the grasshoppers. Well, you got to be real with yourself too. How good is your shit? Why would they stay with you? Do you really have what's going to get them to the next level? Or does someone else have it and you're just hoping they stay with you out of loyalty? Right? And so there is a level of getting real with yourself. I have to be real with myself. There's reasons for people to leave, there's reasons for people to stay. I need enough reasons for people to stay over people to leave. And I think then over time, like most people end up staying, less people will grasshop. So I don't have too many people that come in and do that grasshopper thing anymore because there's enough reasons to stay here. There's enough value. There's enough leadership. There's enough training. There's enough of systems. All of that stuff. There's enough of that. There's good. Red lines. There's good. All this. I stack up enough pillars of like this is really good. This is really good. This is really good in the business, to where there shouldn't be a reason to be a grasshopper and leave here. So like that's an important part because that's where we first take ownership ourselves as leaders, right? Before we cast it and call them a grasshopper. Now we've done that. So we've done that and we keep getting better. People come to me and they want to come over. Like, dude, I'm very clear with people when I talk to any teams or any groups. Like I just brought over another team just recently. And I'm like, dude, I don't care about production. Like we have plenty of production in Spartan. We have the results, we have all this stuff. You've been following me on social. You hit me up on social. You see how I operate. You see how I am. And sure, people could say it's a highlight reel, but I'd imagine we're on this call right now because you have an idea of the human I am today. You have an idea of the Spartan way. You have an idea of how we operate. You have an idea of our culture. And there's something that you align with. Am I right here? And they're usually going to say yes. Like, yeah, like I like the way you guys operate. I like the way you guys are getting loud and you guys are crazy and everyone sees what you're doing. I'm like, okay. So you line up and line in with a lot of how we move and how we operate. That's one of the most important pieces because I look for alignment. I look for people that have the same beliefs. I look for people that get excited and fired up by the same things we get excited and fired up by. I look for people that are internally and externally engaged on social media, engaged in the company chats, right? Because engagement shows me loyalty. It really does. And then when I'm talking to someone that's like coming over, I'm like, look, I don't care if you come over or not. I want you here. We don't need you here. But at the end of the day, if you want to join here, like I'm gonna pour into you. I roll out the red carpet. I will, and all of operations and my leaders will roll out the red carpet for you upon arrival. And the reason we're gonna do this is because I know if we can get you out the gate swinging, we can get your team producing, we can get you guys ripping, and we can do everything in our power to make you successful, whatever it takes. You're gonna end up bringing in a ton more people and building faster than you've ever built before and getting everything you wanted, which is all the reason you came here. Am I right? That's all the reason you're coming here because you want all the things you couldn't get over there. So I'm gonna make sure that happens, but I need to make sure like if you're all in with me, you let me know. If you're not all in and you're still like feeling it out, then this is not gonna go to the next step.
Yeah.
So I don't need you to give me a decision now. Like, dude, you can think about it, you can sleep on it, you can do whatever you want, right? But I want you to tell me when it's time and you want to get onboarded. Like you want to go through this process since you know I'm going to be rolling out the red carpet, which means I'm pouring into you and I'm not pouring into other people, which I have other people that are diehard loyal, that are throwing down massive volume that I could be pouring into, but I'm going to choose you over those next couple weeks to really dump into. So I need to make sure that you're all in with me. If that's the case, I'm all in with you and I'm going to roll out the red carpet and I'm going to tell the team, are you all in? And they'll let me know. And then, last time the guy was like all in, just onboard him right there on the spot. And then I'm like, I tell my whole team, I'm like, dude, we're rolling out the red carpet for this guy. Make sure everyone, I'm like, dude, I look at everything. I'm like, I need your responses to be within, if someone responds like a minute too long to give a response to someone, I'm on their ass.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if someone in operations or a leader like takes too long to respond to somebody, like I see the timestamps of message to response and I'm on their ass and I'll get in there faster than they can and I'll be the one responding. And I do that to show them I'm watching and to show them I want this to be a red carpet experience. I want people to have a level of communication and speed they've never experienced at any other company upon arrival. And so my duty is to give that. And by the way, I have been burned. I'll still get burned. I'll bring people in and they still won't, maybe they still won't stay or maybe they never end up producing, but I'm not going to stop rolling the red carpet for people that give me that commitment. And whether they're a man of the word or not, I'm going to remain a man of my word here.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I mean, it takes two to tango, right? To tango, because you can be aligned and he can promise what you are willing to do, but in the end of the day, they have to be on the other side of the bargain and do the same thing that they say gonna do too, which
Yep.
It's another part of what I meant by grasshoppers too is people the blame why they left. They don't reason of why they left. It's I left because of this. I left because of this. I left because of this person. I couldn't succeed because of this person. But no accountability. So therefore, I'm too nice to myself. I'm gonna move myself to another company. Nobody knows my story. I'm gonna start over again, try something new. So,
Yeah.
not necessarily because I know there are companies that just never intend to supply everything they can for the reps, nor give them opportunity for growth. I've run into those guys on streets every freaking day. I hear how they get treated. I see what they're wearing. I see how they look, how they feel, how they talk. I'm like, dude, you're dead. Like you just working for the company, they just slow you, kills you, man. But you're still there somehow. But
Everyone, by the way, everyone on their way out, they're always gonna play blame because it's just an easier way to stomach the reason you're moving and leaving. And sometimes people just need that to feel okay with the move. Like sometimes that's just like a required part of that exchange when they make a move. They need something to make them feel validated for that decision. So that's just natural human nature to have that inside of them. So
yeah.
it's not surprising when people do that to me at all.
Last thing for you. Thanks, Alex, for that. Is the timeline. How important is structure and timeline, especially either while you're in the job or starting the job?
Elaborate a little bit. Structure and like your
Yeah.
daily
So,
routine or
well, I think like we talked a lot about like personal development and progress, right? And kind of licking the wounds as you suffer and you fail and then you get better. But a lot of times people like expect certain result without really clear vision and time, right? Or effort is going to take. They just like, okay, so if I knock doors, an example, he just told me 150 doors a day, I'm going to be a millionaire in a year. But they don't understand that there's refinement along the way and there's structure that you have to follow along. Kind of like fitness too, right? Just because you show
yeah.
up to the gym doesn't mean that you're going to be freaking fit in a year. Thanks for showing up, but you didn't do the work. So that's what I mean, like how important it is for to have that structure and time set ahead, so that way you can kind of be accountable and seeing that progress more frequent.
So I believe that complexity is the enemy of execution. I think structure is required, but some people get so structured that they end up being unstructured. It ends up falling apart. And so I have a firm belief, and I just know this from my own, dude, there's been so many times where I've watched a YouTube video, read a book, or, there's something happen, and I like add in all these things to my life. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this at this time. I'm gonna read at this time. I'm gonna, do this at this time. And it's like, it's so programmed out that if one thing falls off, it just like everything is a scramble and everything is messed
Okay.
up. So I believe in the right amount of structure. Like I think you need to have a good start to your day, a good end to your day, and then a clear start to your work day as well. So like I have a good start to my day with the gym. I have a good end to my day. When I'm in the field, right? When I'm out there ripping, I'm always reading a discipline book every morning. So I'm always reading like Be Obsessed or Be Average or Discipline is Destiny or Swallow the Frog or like I had to pull up the list, but there'd do a ton of books on discipline, and I'd always like put a book on discipline in the morning. Like I'd be reading it for just a couple pages, just to get my mind right for what I need to do, because now I need to go execute in the field all day long, and I have a start time, and then I usually don't have an end time, but I have an don't end before this time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think keeping your structure is really important. Like, dude, the people that are up super late all the time, the people that are out of control at the nighttime, like the morning time is going to get messed up, then the daytime will get messed up, and it just carries over like a lag. So if you can just get really good at morning and night, like if you just get good at those two things, I have an oh shit alarm. My oh shit alarm is 7 a.m. If I wake up at 6, I'm up, right? If I get up before that, I'm up. That gives me enough time based on my schedule today with what I do now to execute on everything, to get the gym done, to execute on my day, right? So I know for me what that time must be. This is my oh shit alarm. This gives me enough time to still do all these things and get ripping in time for work, right? And so you got to know what that time is for you. And then if you wake up before them, just get up. Don't snooze your alarm ever. You should never snooze an alarm. I think that's the first sign of admitting failure to yourself and not giving yourself any wins and confidence. And then at nighttime, do whatever you can to turn off. Don't let the nighttime ruin your daytime. Like make sure that nighttime is under control. Make sure you go to bed at the right time. You need to be getting 7 to 8 hours. I firmly believe in that. That's how I can operate at a high level all day long, every single day, because I control the morning and night, and then all day long I just go execute on the things I need to do. And I, even on my like remarkable tablet, right? Like this is today, I have like my whole action list. You know what I mean? It's like I'm constantly looking at what really matters, and I'm prioritizing things. And everyone's at different stages in their career. Some people maybe listen to this and they're a setter, somebody's a closer, someone's leading a team, someone's running a company. I don't know. Everyone's at a different point. So you got to understand what's the most valuable thing you could do with every moment of your time during the day, and when do you need to start that thing, and when's the soonest you could end that thing to get the result you want. So I like keeping it simple. I think it's important. I think reading a book on discipline is important, or a book on sales before you get out there is important. I think putting a little bit of that in your ear or in your mind before you go execute on the day helps a lot, especially when you're out in the field. And I'd like to keep it simple, man. I tried all the other stuff, got crazy with it, and those things didn't work out.
Yeah, no. Thanks for sharing, dude. Because yeah, I've been in a situation, and I've been a victim of that too, where I'm very punctual. A lot of times, like if things, like I said, one thing's out of whack, I'm like, oh frick, I'm late to everything else now, and then it just unnecessary stress. All of a sudden, the chaotic situations start to happen. So
You're like, my day's shot.
yeah, you're like, ah, frick, man, start over again tomorrow.
That's
Um,
that's why I even toned it down to where like my workouts are at 30 minutes.
no,
Like
serious?
I'm in the gym for like 20 to 30 minutes, dude. Like that's it.
Oh shoot, dude. No, for me,
I'm
like
getting more, I'm getting more results than ever before because I'm hyper intentional in those 30 minutes
yeah,
on
that's true.
one muscle group, on one lift. So I'm hyper intentional, and so I get way more result with way less time. Now I'm like, how am I going to miss the gym if all I need is 30 minutes? All I need is 20 minutes.
It's interesting because I just listened to Ronnie Coleman. He was working out with somebody, and the guy's like, he was asking him, "How long you gonna go to the gym?" He's like, "Oh, an hour and a half, 2 hours." He's like, "What about you?" He's like, "My prime time, 45 minutes. Like, because I'm there to work. I'm not there to be in the gym." I was like,
Yeah,
dude, I started checking mine because like I wake up early to avoid my kids. So it's like sometimes like 4 o'clock. I have a gym in my house, so I'm like I have to be there in this freaking dark room for 2 hours before my first shows up because I'm like then it's over, it's done. So I'm like paranoid, but I'm trying to do as much as I can and then get sidetracked because I start thinking about work too, and it's just like one thing leads after another. But dude, I appreciate you, man, for jumping on the call. Good to know you more. Obviously, this is one thing from selfish perspective. I like to do this podcast because there's a lot of things that are unseen until you get to really get to know somebody and like talk to them. And the
yeah,
guys like yourself, like you have to spend more time to understand where you're about because like from what you
yeah,
see, it's only fraction of what's going on. So, dude, I
for
appreciate you,
sure.
man, for doing this and. Yeah, look forward to connecting more and get to know you more on a personal level for sure.
Likewise, brother. I appreciate you. I got to jump on some calls, but thanks for having me, man. Go kick some ass.
Yeah,
Let's go
dude.
dominate.
Let's get it, man. Thank you. See
All
ya.
right, brother. All right.